Good morning, everyone. Um, we are here today to go over a project that is probably you can't start until the spring, but this is a good time for planning. This is actually the best time to do planning if you want to do a spring start for a roofing project. So um, we're going to go through roofs, and hopefully by the end of it, you'll have an understanding of what's involved in the roof remediation process. So there are actually many roofing types, but the two most common are the low slope roofs and the steep slope roofs. And I'm going to talk a little bit about each so you have an understanding of each. So low slope roofs, they're also known as flat roofs, are not really flat. All supposedly flat roofs have some pitch to them and they go to either a roof drain or they go to a scupper at the edge of the roof. And the typical drainage on the roof is about 2%. The most common uh, low slope roof types for residential are the single ply membranes. These are the EPDMs, TPOs, and PVCs. The most common of these are the EPDMs and the TPOs, and I'm going to go briefly over them to explain what they are. There are still quite a bit of what we call the legacy systems out there, which are your modified bitumen roofs, which are either torch down or cold applied, and they're still out there. We still inspect quite a few of them. A lot of them have roof extender products on them that have extended their life, which are these coatings that go over top. So in low slope roofs, the most common are EPDM and TPO. Now, EPDM is a rubber-based. It's what they call a thermoset product, a thermoset membrane, which means its properties are already set. So in order to um, bind sheets of them together, you have to actually use solvent welding. So they're actually glued together. Whereas TPO, which is a thermoplastic membrane, actually can be heat welded. So that by applying heat, it actually melts it a little bit and then it bonds together with the TPO next to it. PVC is very similar to TPO. It's also a thermoplastic membrane and it uses heat welding. It's a bit more pricey, so in the realm of residential products, most people would go with the TPO. EPDM comes in the most common color is black, but it is available in white. TPO actually comes in a variety, probably 3 or 4 colors, depending on what your choice is. But white is the most common. The the method in installing them, there's only 2 methods in installing them. It's either going to be fully adhered or mechanically fastened, and this is going to be dependent on what your roof deck is made of. If you have a concrete roof deck, it's going to be fully adhered. If you have a plywood roof deck, it's going to be mechanically fastened. There are some other low slope roof types that are out there. Like I said before, there's a modified bitumen that's still out there. This is typically known as torch down. There are 2 types of modified bitumen roofs that are out there. There's the SBS and the APP. Again, the difference is how they're applied. Now, the SBS is more of a rubber-based product, and the APP is more of a plastic-based product. So they have different methods in how they're used and how they're applied. They're typically applied in 2 overlapping layers, with the top layer having some sort of granular coating on top of it. Less common systems out there are insulated roof membrane assemblies and protected membrane roofs. Now, these are more commercially based, and you might see them on high-rise buildings or very large condominium buildings. This is an example of torch down, how they're applying it. It's very risky to do this on a plywood roof deck. That's why it's not really used that much anymore. But it is used. On the picture on the bottom here shows the modified bitumen roof with a Sometimes you'll see like a silver coating on it. This is just a roof extender. It's painted on there and it protects from the UV degradation to give you a few more years life out of the roof. Modified bitumen roofs are very easy to identify when you go up on your roof because they come in rolls of 39-inch wide. So with the 3-inch overlap, you could see the seams are every 36 inches, as opposed to a single ply membrane like EPDM or TPO, which come in either 6-foot or 10-foot wide sections. So the spacing between seams is much greater. For steep slope roofs, which are typically your asphalt shingles, the code requires a minimum pitch of 2 and 12. That's 2 inches vertical for every 12 inches horizontal. Although in our experience, we have seen roofs that don't even meet the code requirement. Um, so with that in mind, you need at least some pitch in order, some pitch in order to use roof shingles before the water can get underneath the roof shingles. So there are two basic types that we see. The 3-tab shingle, which is the very popular, contractors love it because it's cheaper and usually it was used quite a bit, but we don't see it as much anymore, only on the older buildings. And then there's the laminated or dimensional, which are the architectural grade asphalt shingles. We also come across standing seam metal roofs, which can either be aluminum or galvanized, sometimes copper. And then there are tile roofing. Now, the three basic materials for the tile roofing are the older materials are the terracotta and the concrete. Concrete very heavy for the tile, but the newer tile roofing systems incorporate synthetic tile, and I'll show you an example of that going forward. So just to show you the basic types of asphalt shingles. On the far left here, this is your typical laminated three-dimensional shingle that simulates wood shakes. This is very popular and probably the most popular shingle that we specify and is installed throughout New Jersey, Pennsylvania. Um, and then to the far right is the contractor grade 3-tab. Now, the two in the middle are more specialty shingles that, are much more expensive, but are rarely used in our experience. One of the things you also need to consider when you're selecting your asphalt shingle is color blending. Now, some manufacturers blend multiple, the coating on top of the shingle is a combination of blended granules. In some manufacturers blend maybe 2 or 3 granules to get their color combinations. Others have more granules, more different color granules, and what it does, it creates a very distinctive modeling of the color. So you can see on the right here, this is all this is an intentional look where you get the different modeling of the different colors on the one roof. This is intentional. Versus on the left, this is probably a 3-color blended shingle, and you get a more homogeneous color look. Even though you can start to see there are different shades of color in there, but it's not as drastic as what is on the right here. For standing seam roofs, we rarely see it to do an entire roof. It's very expensive, and it has its drawbacks. We mainly see it as accents. So you can see on the right here, sometimes we'll see porches or lower roofs with the standing seam metal roof. There are some special details that you have to use with it. You have to use a high temperature underlayment because, as you can imagine, the sun beating on the metal roof really conducts the heat to the substrate below. So you need to have special detailing for it, uh, both underneath it and at the edges. Here's one of our projects using one of the synthetic Spanish tiles. This is all recycled plastic that they use, very lightweight. There's a special way to install them. And you can get a Class A fire rating with special detailing. If you could see here, we have underlayment underneath it, and then you have to install this special membrane on top of it, which gives it the Class A fire rating. And then you have to, of course, order the tile with they put a they put chemicals in the composition of the recycled plastics to create the Class A rating. Now, they're not very popular in New Jersey, except for down the shore. As you can see here, this was a building on right on the coast that we replaced the concrete tile with this synthetic tile. Now that was a brief overview of the different roofing types, and I'd like to go into the remediation process now. Now, we're coming to the point where your roofs are probably 20, 25 years old now, and you're thinking about maybe a roofing project, or maybe it's coming up in your reserve study that you're going to have to start thinking about a roofing project. So unless you already know that you're going to be replacing the roofs, there may be an evaluation of the roofing conditions. Um, you may want this as a first step. You may have roof inspections, and I'll go into what type of those roof inspections are. But you may have some sort of roofing evaluation first. If you already know you want to replace them, you could probably skip this step and go right into the preparation of the remediation specifications. So, because there is some inspections involved with preparing those specifications, and I'll explain that in a minute. And then there's going to be remediation techniques. Every roof is different. So, in preparing the specifications, you have to actually you have to do the inspections to understand which detailing is required for your community. And what is considered is also what kind of siding you have, what kind of flashing is going to be needed, and how to address them. So once you prepare the specifications, you're ready to go out to bid, and then we'll talk about the bidding process and selecting a contractor, and then finally in performing the work and any maintenance. So the roof evaluation. So the first step in a roof evaluation is to review all the maintenance, the leak reports that you have, so you can understand where the leaks are coming from. You can inspect them, and you can see what might be causing these roof leaks. You're also going to need to understand the roof construction. The only way to know this is to actually get into attics and to view the roof construction from the attic. Um, In the attic, you'll also be able to identify if there's any fire retardant treated wood and what type it is, whether it's the old blaze guard or whether you have gypsum board or you have some of the newer products. Um, if you have the old blaze guard, we definitely recommend replacing it when you're doing the roofing project. Then you're also identifying all the flashing details you're going to need to specify. But it doesn't stop right there. So right there, you're talking about the roof and the roof construction, but there's more to a roofing project. There's the attic ventilation. So you gotta see what kind of system is being used for the attic ventilation. So usually the intake air is coming in from the soffits or fascias or lower down on the roof. And it may be handled in a variety of different ways. And also with the attic ventilation, you have to look at where it is being exhausted. Usually it's maybe a ridge vent, maybe there's gable vents, maybe there's static louvers up on the roof. So that has to be evaluated, and usually calculations have to be performed to make sure you're getting at least the minimum attic ventilation that's required for both the building code and the manufacturer of the shingle that you're going to be installing. And then we look at exhaust, bathroom exhaust, dryer exhaust, kitchen exhaust. By code, all exhausts have to be vented directly to the outdoors. A lot of times we go into roofs and we see bathroom exhausts just venting into the attic, or they're venting right over the soffit, um, or they're combined into a plenum box, and then there might be two or three bathroom exhausts combined into one plenum box, and then there's only one penetration through the roof. These are all issues that need to be addressed during the roofing project. All the vents need to go to the outside. Any combined vents need to be separated, because you can have backflow cross contamination of the air. So they all have to be separated and exhausted outdoors. Then you're going to have multiple roof penetrations. These are usually your sewer vents, your plumbing vents. And then you may have radon vents. These are easy to identify on the roof because the plumbing vents are usually schedule 40 pipe and the radon vents schedule 30 pipes. So they're easy to identify up on the roof. And then you have to specify the proper flashing for them. But it doesn't stop there. You also may have skylights, chimney chase covers, satellite dishes. You may want to replace your gutters and downspouts. You may need to replace fascias and rakes or the aluminum on your fascias and rakes during this project. And that would all be rolled into the one specification. Now the evaluation, the visual observations of your roof. There are three basic ways to evaluate your roof. So observations from ground level, where you can actually see a lot from the ground level, and then you can also look for evidence of drainage issues, shingle blow off, and then you can also start to list the different details that you're going to be needing for your specification. But if you're not sure you need to replace your roofs yet, you may opt for a more detailed roof evaluation. So the more detailed roof evaluations are either a walk-on inspection or a drone inspection. And the drone inspection can either be a visual inspection or a thermographic inspection. So these are actually a pre-step to doing the specification. Let's say you have 20 buildings and you want to phase the project, so you want to know which ones go first. You may opt to do a roof evaluation first to kind of see which buildings need to go in the first phase versus second and third. Now, these are very close observations of the roof. As you know, as it says, you're walking on the roof, you're looking for you're looking close up at any issues that might be observable. You may be lifting up shingles to see what's underneath it, to see the flashing conditions. Uh, and then you're going to have a closer look at all the roof vents and other penetrations. Attic inspections are also very important because you can begin to see the condition of the roof sheathing, the type of roof sheathing, the construction. If you're getting condensation in the roof, you start to see the water staining, the black sheath, the black water staining on the shingles, rusty nails, and you could begin to understand those type of issues. Usually when you're doing a roof specification, you'll do both the ground level inspection and you'll do the attic inspection. You won't be doing the walk-on or drone inspections because that is, like I said, more for a detailed evaluation. As part of any one of these observations, but more importantly for the walk-on or drone evaluation, you may decide to do some invasive inspections, and these are usually done if you have a roof leak and you want to pinpoint the source of the leak. Here's an example of a drone evaluation. The top is using a visual observation. These are high definition cameras, and you can really zoom in and take a look at the condition of the roof. The little squares here are static louvers. These are your exhaust vents at the peak of the roof, and then you have chimney chase covers here. You see they're very bright, so they probably were replaced recently. It's very easy to detect old ones. Contractors usually install galvanized metal chimney chase covers that will rust out in 20 years. So on a drone inspection, they'll look brown, very, very distinctive. On on the thermographic, on the lower picture, you begin to see the dark areas, that are really, the dark areas are okay. When you see the bright areas, there may be areas of water being trapped underneath the shingles. The visual inspection, even from the ground, can detect a number of things. So these are I'm going to go through a few examples of some visual inspections of a roof. Aging and weathering. This is a typical roof that has come to the end of its useful life. It has aged, weathered, and the shingles have deteriorated. This is an old 3-tab roof system that has aged and weathered badly and needs to be replaced. Then you may get some areas where you're missing shingles. Um, This could be for a couple reasons. It could be wind blow off, yes, certainly, or it could be improper nailing of the shingles, which we have been involved in a number of projects where shingles have delaminated, and after doing forensic analysis, it was because of improper nailing by the contractor, and and the warranty had to cover it. Um, Also, there might be defective shingles, which also would be a warranty issue. Now, wind damage sometimes presents itself a little bit differently. So wind pressure is the greatest at the edge of the roof and at the corners of the roof. So if you see damage that looks like this is not due to nailing or defective shingles. This is most definitely from wind damage where it uplifts the shingles. Maybe the shingles are a little bit older, so they're a little bit more brittle, and then they tend to break. Sometimes when you're doing a walk-on or even a drone inspection, you can detect certain workmanship issues, like over in this area, there's not enough overlap over the roof, the rake edge here, which can lead to water infiltration on the side. Now, this is an example of at the roof eave where the contractor, the thinking here, I guess, by some contractors is that, you want to drape the shingle into the gutter. This way the water flows into the gutter. Well, that's the wrong thinking. The the shingle at the eave should only overhang a maximum of 3/4 of an inch over the drip edge. Otherwise, you have a condition like this where the wind can actually uplift these and begin to delaminate the roof. Whenever you're doing a roof inspection, wherever you see gobs and gobs of caulking or other sealants, you begin to suspect that they've had an issue there. Whether in this particular case, the cap shingle may have cracked open because due to age, and they were probably getting water infiltration there. But whenever you see caulk is not a good sign because that means that there was probably a water leak at that point. And then you look at the roof penetrations and the flashing boots that go over them. Uh, you look for primarily workmanship issues. So you can see here, if you have exposed fasteners on the bottom, this is improper installation. You can see this is beginning to weather bad. This is beginning to come to the end of its useful life, and it's you know the world of these pipe boots has come a long way. They used to be like neoprene gaskets around the pipe. Now, some of the newer pipe flashing boots are all aluminum. So there's no rubber parts or neoprene parts to degrade over time. So over here we can see improper installation again, where you see the edge of the flashing exposed. That means water can actually get underneath here, cause a leak. And so it's another example of an improper installation. Now, the issues with this roof might not be as evident, but they could cause roof leaks. So you have two roof facets here. You have the primary roof and you have a gable over here. That is a secondary roof. So water flowing, runoff flowing down the main roof hits this valley. And if it's a torrential thunderstorm or something where the water's coming with velocity, it's actually gonna turn up and go up this roof slightly. So if you have exhaust vents or pipe penetrations too close to the center line of the valley, water could start to get into these accessories. Another issue here is the ridge vent. You want to have some clearance between the end of the ridge vent and the main roof, because again, water coming down the main roof can ride on top of the ridge vent and get actually into the opening of the ridge vent exhaust. So you have to be cognizant of these issues when you're doing the roof or evaluating the roof. Another example here is you might see a line of nail penetrations. A lot of times this might be an area where the nails were not fully set, and with the humidity changes and the swelling of the plywood going up and down, because plywood will move, buildings do move. Depending on temperature and humidity. Um, the nail heads have worn through the shingles. Sometimes these may be seams and panels where the nail missed is not even holding into any plywood. This is an example of a sagging roof. So a lot of times roof trusses may be 24 inches on center. And if the sheathing is starting to degrade in any way, you might get a sag between the roof trusses, and this can create problems because there's insufficient support at the midspan. And you could get this can lead to a number of problems with the roof shingle or roof leaks. Another thing that is checked during a roofing project is flashing at the sidewalls. So it wasn't until recently that kickout flashing was part of the building code, and it really wasn't, 15, 20 years ago, it was never installed by contractors. Um, but it is very important to have what we call kickout flashing, where a roof meets a sidewall. And the reason for that is, and I'll show you an example in a second, the water coming down the roof will a lot of times ride up and behind the siding and rot out the plywood and framing in this area just below the gutter. And I'll show you an example of what what kickoff flashing is later on in this presentation. Now, step flashing. This is an example where they didn't install any step flashing. They just installed continuous flashing along a sidewall, which could lead to roof leaks at that water getting underneath the flashing along the roof here. When you're doing any of these roofing projects, you want to make sure that there are no gaps, especially this is very, commonly seen that fascias that don't close up the gap properly. Any gap, even as small as this, is an invitation for birds, squirrels to get into your attic, or even hornets. Trees and other vegetation that are overhanging the roof should be trimmed before you do any type of roof project, because you do not want any roofs laying on your roof or actually too close to the roof, because if you can imagine, this is fairly close, but when it rains and these leaves are heavy, this is probably a foot closer, maybe even laying on the roof at the time, which could cause physical damage to the roof if in contact. So after the roof evaluation is done, if you need it, or if you're going straight to specifications, that then the specifications will be prepared. So there are two types of roof specifications. One is for an overlay of an existing roof. This is highly not recommended. Um, and then there is the complete removal of the existing roofing system, and then right down to the sheathing, removing all the shingles and flashings and accessories and replacing them with new. So the roof specification the new roof for a new roof, the roof specification will provide flashing details for all the various configurations of your roof. You'll have flashing details for pipe collars, vents, flue pipes. Also because the roof will be evaluated for its attic ventilation, you might have details to replace the soffits at your eave. Maybe you have old plywood soffits with the small little vents that are installed in them, and then during this process, it'll be recommended to replace that with vinyl or aluminum soffits that are perforated in order to increase the airflow. So it's not surprising. A lot of roofing projects also you end up replacing soffits at your eaves. The roof specification will also specify all the materials to be used. This is important in order to get apples to apples bids from contractors. Like I said, not recommended an overlay of an existing roof. Typically, you can only do this on 3-tab shingles because they lay flat. You cannot really do this on laminated shingles because they're irregularities. So you can imagine if you have all these irregularities on your roof going over it with more of the same, you're just presenting problems with surfaces that are irregular. In doing an overlay, they really just cut back the intersections and the edges, and then they go right over it with the new roofing. So whatever issues you had with the sheathing, maybe you had rotted sheathing, maybe you have blaze guard, maybe you have flashing that is degrading. You're not really replacing any of that. You're not replacing drip edges. So because of that, uh, you're really not. You're actually um, lessening the life of the roof right from the beginning. And most importantly, you won't. No contractor will give you a warranty for an overlay. For the complete removal and replacement of an existing roof, you tear off the roof all the way down to the plywood, and then you remove everything. This way you can evaluate the plywood. You could remove any deteriorated plywood that is there. If you have blaze guard, you would be replacing the blaze guard. And then you start new, and you put in your ice and water shield, you put in your flashings, you put in your underlayments, and then you all new accessories, your pipe boots, the collars around the around your pipes, uh, new new terminations on your exhaust, and a new shingle system. This is just an example of some of the details that might be incorporated into a roof specification. Once you have the roof specification prepared, at that point, usually it's reviewed with the association. The board gets a chance to review it before it goes out to bid. A lot of times it'll be a combination of a project manual and drawings that will completely describe the intent of the project and provide standardized bid forms within the project manual. The reason for that is at the end of the day, you want to get bids back and you want to be able to put them side by side to evaluate the contractors. So in the bid forms, there's going to be actually three components to the bid form. There's going to be what we call the base bid, which is usually lump sum prices, let's say per building, for the roof specification that is in the drawings and specified in the project manual. Then there might be some alternate bid options. For example, you may not be convinced you want to replace your gutters and downspouts, so you may get separate prices for your gutters, downspouts. You'll get separate prices for your chimney chase covers and um, and items like that. Then there's going to be what we call the unit pricing. Now, this is going to be for anything that cannot be quantified and put into the base bid. The most common item for unit pricing is plywood replacement because we don't really know how many sheets of plywood are going to be replaced. So we'll get a unit price for the existing plywood to be removed and new plywood to be furnished and installed. And we'll get it on a per sheet basis. And there might be some other items that are on there, maybe fascia replacement for rotted fascias that are encountered, and maybe satellite dish mounts and items like that, where we don't have a a quantity at the base bid stage of the game. Then there might be the extra works. So skylights, replacement of skylights. If you're replacing the roof, you should be replacing skylights at the same time. A lot of them are probably the same age as the roof, maybe 20, 25 years old. If they're not leaking, they will leak at some point. So this is a good time to replace them. You'll never get a better price on skylights because even if they're the homeowner responsibility, you're really just paying for the skylight itself and the installation. You're not paying for all the roofing that goes around it, the flashing, because that's part of the base bid cost. Attic fans. Attic fans are a hot spot with a lot of communities. Homeowners have installed attic fans here and there on buildings, and it is I could do a whole actually a whole hour on attic fans by themselves. But needless to say, the manufacturers of the shingles do not recommend having both an attic fan and, let's say, a passive system like a ridge vent on the same roof, because they could short circuit each other. For example, if the attic fan came on, it could be drawing air in from the ridge vent instead of from the soffit ventilation. So typically they are required to be removed during a roof project. A lot of places actually will let residents have them with the stipulation that they have to replace them. And if you replace them, we always recommend installing both a humidistat and a thermostat in the attic. This way you're covered for both winter and summer. The thermostat protects you from high heat in the summer, and the humidistat protects you from high humidity and condensation in the winter. And in this way, you'll have some level of protection in the attic from from degradation of the shingles. We also recommend blocking off the exhaust vent on the ridge within 5 feet of any attic fans to help kind of prevent some short circuiting when they do come on. And then there's chimney chase covers or chimney caps. Like I said, the original ones were probably galvanized steel. Usually you replace them with either aluminum or stainless steel, and then you probably never have to replace them again. Satellite dish. So for roofs that have satellite dishes on them, in order to maintain any type of warranty, you have to install satellite dish mounts, which get installed when the shingles are being installed, and then the satellite dish would be installed on top of the mount. And then there might be areas where we want additional ice and water shield. When you get the bids back, because it's standardized bid form, you can look at them apples to apples, put them side by side, rate them low to high, and then make some decisions based on not just the base bids, but also the cost for some unit prices. So for example, if the base bid may be low for a contractor, but their unit price for plywood replacement is high, and there's going to be a lot of plywood to be replaced in your community, you may begin to um, evaluate that with the next bidder who might have lower prices for that unit price item. But the bids that are coming back from the contractor, that's not your budget for the project. You're gonna have to put in the general contingencies for any items that are unforeseen. You'll have to put in a price for, a budget price for permits, and then if you're going to have an engineer oversee the project for their time on the project. Now, once you get done with that, you may narrow it down. You may get, let's say, 6 bids back. You want a minimum of 3. You may get up to 6. Then you may narrow it down to 2 or 3, and then maybe conduct some contractor interviews to see if you have a rapport with any of the contractors. In selecting a contractor, it's important. Pricing is always very important. You want to get if they are truly apples to apples, you want to go with the low bidder. But that's not always the case. Sometimes you may look at other things like scheduling or experience, or you may check their references to see if there's something there that makes you uncomfortable with, let's say, the low bidder, and then you might go up to the next lowest bidder. After you've hired, now when you select a bidder, there's a stage here. There's a stage here in the process after you select one of the contractors, and before you start the project, you have to execute a contract. This is usually with the association's attorney, um, and the time frame for that it could be as short as a week to maybe 2 months, depending on how fast your attorney can get that done. And a lot of times there's a back and forth between the attorneys of the contractor and the association to work out the legalese. But once you have contractor and set, you have contract signed, they may require a deposit. The first step in the process is to conduct a pre-construction meeting. They're going to be going out for permits right away as soon as the contract is signed, and then you're going to set up a pre-construction meeting, and that's for contractor, any board members, property manager, and the engineer to walk the site to go over the logistics of the project and where you're going to be staging materials and maybe the sequence of buildings. The association would also probably hold a meeting with the residents. It could be, a Zoom meeting, an in-person meeting, just to, go over the roofing project so everybody's alerted that a roofing project's coming up and there's going to be some inconvenience to the residents. Um, you want to do that, both in a long range version and a short range version. So if you know you're going to do it, in 6 months, you may give them a long range notification, and then when you get closer to the project, give them short range. On the When the contractor's on site, they will actually post a notice to residents on each unit, usually a week before they start that building, to kind of give them advance notice before they start a building. In that notice, there will probably be a telephone number or an email address for residents to contact if they have any issues. The most important thing with any of this communication to residents is to keep the expectations reasonable. There is going to be some inconvenience. Um, Fortunately, roofing projects go very quickly. You could probably, on average, you could probably do one unit in a day. Um, for a crew of The crew sizes are usually 6 to 10. For the smaller crew, they could probably do 30 square a day. Larger crew, maybe 50 square a day. And for those of you who don't know what a square is an area measure that equals 100 square feet on the roof. Um, so it's just easier to refer to it as a square. So the role of the engineer. So you may contract with your engineer to be on site to do oversight. Now, their role in the engineer is to uh, to check general conformance with the specification. So basically, they're there to make sure you get what you paid for and what the contractor bid on. And material substitutions would have to be evaluated they have to be either equal or better than what was specified. Usually we don't like any type of substitution of products because they're very intricate to what the warranty is going to be. And for example, for a GAF Golden Pledge warranty, you have to use 5 of their roofing products, and that might be very intricate in what was specified. So you don't want to start substituting products without understanding the ramifications. Um, and then the engineer would also approve any work outside the base bid contract. This is, for example, the quantity of plywood being replaced. They would also verify and authorize the payment of any of the contractor invoices. Usually invoices would be submitted after buildings are completed. And the engineer is acting as a liaison between the contractor, the board, and the management company. When the roofs are done, the engineer will actually walk the roofs with the contractor and go over and prepare punch lists. Now for maintenance, maintenance is fairly simple. If you go with let's say like I mentioned, the JF Golden Pledge warranty, that is a for multifamily building, it's a 40-year warranty. The first 25 years are covered at 100% material and labor for both material defects and workmanship issues. So for maintenance, you really just have to visually inspect your roofs, and that can be done from the ground, just making sure that there's no shingles blowing off, or damaged, or you begin to, or if there's any homeowners complaining of water leaks, you want to tackle that quick because it would all be covered under a warranty. Want to keep your trees off the roofs and clean the gutters on a regular basis, 2, 3 times a year. I'm going to show some photos from recent projects. I'm going to go through these quickly. So there's staging area. So on any of these projects, you're going to have staging area that you're going to need on site for containers, dumpsters, pallets, porta-john. There's going to be two types of demolition. This is the typical one where they're going to drape tarps over and they're just going to start removing the shingles and bringing them down to ground. In the rear of the buildings where they can't get equipment, that's fairly typical. This is the, process of removing shingles. So they'll show up on the first day. The first thing they start doing at 8 o'clock is start ripping the shingles. Some contractors use equipment like this that have a container on it where they can load the debris onto it and then bring it over to the dumpster. They also use that same equipment to load the roof with the materials to be used. Some contractors use these these portable, if they can't have the dumpster close to the building, they may use these equipters, which they'll load up and then bring the material to the dumpster that way instead of manually doing it. This is an example of blaze guard. If you have at your firewalls, if you have something that looks white like this, you have blaze guard. So it was a product that was laminated and it has been known to delaminate, which then means you're losing your fire protection, but it also causes condensation problems, oily stains on ceilings, uh, oily stains and degradation of insulation. So generally, if you have it, we just generally recommend if you're doing a roofing project to replace it. Replace this with with the the newer products. Sometimes we'll run across structural issues that we'll have to address. As you can see here, there's some rafters that have gone started warping. So these would have to be addressed on the spot. Usually that's the advantage of having an engineer on the site because they will address this immediately. You'll start sistering up the rafters and getting everything looking true. This way you could put the sheathing back on. In order to get proper attic ventilation, if you don't have insulation baffles, you'll be installing them. The only way to properly do this is to remove a sheet of plywood and to get into the attic and do that. Here's an example of some exhaust vents that were ducted to a plenum and then discharged outside. Obviously, you can see that there could be some cross-contamination if one exhaust is running and the other is not, where the exhaust can then backflow into the other exhaust. Here's an example of running the exhaust. These are for bathroom exhaust, running the new ductwork up and making sure that they penetrate the roof. This is just more example of, usually if it's a hard duct like this, that's typically a dryer vent. The the flex duct is usually a bathroom vent. This is an installation of a drip edge. Then you use your ice and water shield at the eave. You also use ice and water shield where you have the roof that adjoins a sidewall. You want to extend it up the side, so even though this is a roofing project, they're removing siding in order to install the flashing. This is an example of ice and water shield at the eave, and then they're installing the underlayment above on this underlayment installation. This is just an example of the roof that has been stripped. So this picture shows both ice and water shield in the valley and at the rakes. We normally specify ice and water shield at the rakes. A lot of warranties don't require this, but we find it's just added insurance from wind-driven rain at the edge of the roof. You'll also see this shows a number of things. It shows ice and water shield with the drip edge over it at the roof rake. You see that the siding had to be removed on the chimney to flash up there. This right here is a kick-out flashing. Kick-out flashing here. Again, siding was removed to extend the flashing up the wall. This is the same. So on the roof eave, the drip edge the ice and water shield goes over the drip edge. On the rake, the ice and water shield is under the drip edge. So you have to lap these things properly in order for the system to work. This is flashing around a chimney chase cover that had to be stripped in order to flash it. This is some of the equipment that may be used. So most projects, most days start out, they tear off the roof in the morning, they strip everything, they start putting all the underlayments down, the flashings, replace the sheathing. Then by lunchtime, the roof is ready for shingles. They'll load the roof with the shingles, and then they'll break for lunch. And then when they come back from lunch, they're shingling. Shingles are installed in a step process. You don't want to what we call rack the system where they're going up vertically. You want to keep them at a diagonal. Some accessories like this is a bathroom exhaust have to be installed when you're installing the shingles. You can't install it ahead of time because uh, it has to be interweaved with the shingle and has to be lapped properly. Also, these pipe boots have to be done while you're installing the shingles, along with step flashing. This is a kind of the end product with the new boot covers on them. Step flashing the same. They have to be installed while you're installing the shingles. These are just more of the same. You'll have flashing. There are two types of chimney chases. There's the solid brick ones, and then there's the wood. So this will require special counter flashing that has to be put over the flashing after it's installed. You can see that there's a reglet cut here for the counter flashing, which will look something similar to this. This is an example of kick-out flashing, where the roof terminates on the sidewall, and then there's ice and water shield behind it. This is a kick-out flashing here. So after the roof is installed, then they bring the siders back to reinstall the siding. You might have some small roofs that have to be flashed. This is continuous flashing at the head of a roof. If you have stucco, the stucco may have to be, or ephes, they may have to be removed in order to flash it properly. This is an example of a perforated soffit. This is contractor grade chimney chase covers that have rusted and are looking for a replacement. This is a replacement. If you have the brick chimney chase covers, you'll need to redo the hydraulic mortar at the top. So this will all have to be removed. What we normally do is put in new mortar, and then we'll put a elastomeric coating over it in order to waterproof it. Here, as you can see, the elastomeric coating. The mortar has been replaced, and we're putting the coating on it. This is what we call a B vent. So this is usually for a gas appliance. You don't want to do all this roofing work and then leave rusty old pipes on the roof. So we normally put in the specifications under the base bid, if it's surface rust, we could touch sand it, and if it's already silver, we'll use an aluminum paint to paint over it. So at the end of the day, when you have the roofing project done, you don't have these rusty pipe up on there on your roof. This is an attic fan, satellite dish. This is before the roofing project is done. So here's an example of human error. So we install this is a satellite dish mount that gets installed at the time of the shingles, and then the satellite company came back and they installed it on the roof. So they obviously did not know what they were doing. This had to be redone, and the satellite dish needed to be mounted here on the proper mount. So this is a case of human error. This is replacing skylights, flashing around the skylights. Installing baffles at cathedral ceilings is important because the insulation may be choking off the airflow from the from the eave to the attic space or the ridge. And at the end of the day, your roof will look something like this. Nice new ridge vent, new shingles, new chimney chase covers. All the pipes are nice looking, all new accessories. And that does it.
All right. We have a hard stop at 10:30 for everyone, but does anybody have any questions they want to ask now? Feel free if there was an earlier question and it was lingering, just feel free to jump in. We can always go back in the presentation to refer to something. No?
Yeah, hi, this is Mike Daly. Do you got have some suggested roofers that we could use for some quotes?
Oh, absolutely. We have actually a pre-qualified list of roofers, probably 10 or so. And they're regional, so some might be closer to South Jersey than North Jersey. So when we do put together a bid package, um, we would look at our list and pick. But if you're looking for just some suggestions, we do have a list of qualified master elite contractors that are used to working in multifamily developments.
Okay, in Pennsylvania as well?
Yes. Hmm.
How do we get that list?
Eastern Pennsylvania.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Email Chelsea and then she'll direct it towards me and I'll get in touch with you.
Yeah, as I
Okay,
mentioned in the beginning, just in case anybody missed it, I'm going to be sending an email to everybody who's been here today. So
okay.
you'll get an email from me with a copy of the presentation, a recording, and then feel free to reply to that email if you would like a CEU certificate or you have any additional questions. Absolutely, like Mark said, you can ask that question, and I'm going to get you that list. I do see there's a question in the chat as well. I'm sorry, Mike, did you have any other questions on top of
No,
that?
that's great. Thank you.
Okay, absolutely. So Victoria asked, if you install counter flashing on brick fireplaces and replace pipe boots, does that require removing some shingles or are they installed over the shingles?
Well, the counter flashing is installed over the shingles. Now the pipe boots are installed with the shingles. I don't know if that answers your question.
And then Kimberly also said, great suggestion. Thank you, Kimberly, that the attic fans would be a good topic for a separate webinar, since you said that's probably a whole topic in and of itself.
Yeah, we could spend a whole hour on attic fans.
I'm putting that on my list. Thank you.
I have a question about sheathing. Is there uh what about the difference between using plywood and OSB?
Well, we recommend all our remediation projects. We recommend using plywood, 4-ply, at least 4-ply plywood. So it's either going to be 1/2 inch or greater. I like using 5/8 plywood because I think it's more sturdy, especially when you have a 24-inch span between trusses. We never specify OSB for a remediation project.
Thank you.
I just have one more quick question. Underlayment. I had a couple roof inspections, and the one roofer highly recommended the GAF product. It's non-tearable, it's waterproof yet breathable. Are they still using the black construction type paper underlayments today?
Well, they're using a form of it. GAF uses something called shingle mate. Um, it looks just like the old impregnated felt paper,
Mhm.
because it is impregnated felt paper, but it's modified. But that's your lowest grade underlayment. Um, we like to recommend there are two products in the GAF line that we like to recommend. One is called Tiger Paw, which is a synthetic, and it is breathable and it is affordable. There's a product that is more expensive than that's self-adhering called Deckmate, I believe it is. Um, we stay away from a product called Felt Buster because it doesn't have the UL listing yet. Uh, and when you have roofs that have fire retard, if at your party walls, if you have fire retardant wood, it's always better to use um, products that will maintain a Class A rating. So The shingle mate will actually achieve that, even though it's the old building paper. And then the product that we like to specify, Tiger Paw, does as well.
Okay, thanks.
This is probably one of the reasons why you might want to have an engineer involved in your roof specifications, because, well, like I said, we do maybe a dozen to 20 large roofing communities a year. So we deal with we have like 3 or 4 running right now, and probably 3 or 4 on the boards. So we do this day in, day out, and know the pitfalls.
Okay, great.
All right. Thank you all for being here. If you have any other questions, feel free to reply to my email and we'll get you the answer. But have a great day, everyone. Thank you. Thanks, Mark.
All right. Goodbye, everybody. Have a good day.
Thank you.